have a good special guest here. Willowcroft was founded in 1983, am I correct?
Oh, well, what are you talking about, First Vineyard?
First Vineyard.
First Vineyard, 1980.
1980. Well, this is Lew. He's actually the owner, founder, and the person to put the first vine in. So, Lew, give us a little bit of history about Willowcroft and how all this kind of came to.
All right, well, it's kind of a fun history. I was living in the suburbs in Fairfax. My family, two young daughters, and my daughters got involved with a wonderful club, the 4-H Club of Virginia, and became interested in doing projects for the 4-H Club, which involved raising animals. And raising animals in the Fairfax suburb wasn't very popular with our neighbors. So we figured we had to buy a farm. So we came out here and bought this farm in October of '79.
Oh, wow.
And so let's see, I've been here for over 40 years now. The kids came and we bought the farm, and they raised animals, but I was thinking, okay, what can you do on a small, high rocky farm to maybe make a positive cash flow and a profit? And of course, you couldn't do it with corn, or you couldn't do it with soybeans, or high rocky farm was not right for that. And it's hard to do it with animals, farm animals. So I discovered kind of by chance that people were beginning to think about the possibility of growing commercial grapes in Virginia. At that time, in the 70s and until 80, the Extension Service and the USDA were not providing advice to commercial grape farmers in Virginia. They didn't think it was good advice. They thought that it was not possible to successfully have a farm to do that in Virginia. So, against the advice, I decided to do it anyway. And the reason was that I was running Hazelton Laboratories, big contract laboratory in Tyson's Corner at the time. And I had a financial analyst working for me that was hired away from me by Barbersville. And Barbersville, one of the first ventures in Virginia in commercial winemaking, run by a huge Italian winemaker, the Zonin family.
Yeah. The
Zonin family. So I figured, somebody that knew what they were doing thought, well, maybe it was possible. So I went and visited Barbersville, learned a little bit about what they were doing, and figured I'd take a chance. And so what had happened was the technology of growing grapes had changed, and because of the wonderful work of a Ukrainian plant pathologist, Dr. Konstantin Frank, it was now deemed maybe possible to grow Vitis vinifera varieties, European grape varieties, in the Middle Atlantic states. So I figured I'd give it a try. Of course, I didn't know anything about it, and I called Dr. Frank and said, I'm a commercial. Want to start a commercial winery in my small farm in Virginia. Would you sell me the planting stock? It wasn't easy to get planting stock in those days. And he said to me in his Ukrainian accent, English was not one of his native languages, he said, I wouldn't sell stock to you, you don't know what you're doing. And of course he was right. And I was able to get the vines, the first vines for me, of the vinifera varieties were Chardonnay, Riesling, and Cabernet Sauvignon, and they came from a hobbyist in Martha's Vineyard.
Oh, wow.
So the first grapes here in my vineyard came from Martha's Vineyard, and were planted. I planted, a few dozen of them in what had been the old garden plot here at Willowcroft. And thinking that, that would be a good place to start them. And it wasn't. There was much too high a level of nitrogen in the garden plot because the manure from the barn animals had been hauled up there for a century. And it was extremely high in nitrogen. The grapevines took off and grew excessively, and because of that excessive growth, they failed to harden off correctly for the winter, and they were all killed in the first winter of 1980.
Oh, wow.
81 we planted again, and planted in pasture land, and that vineyard's still in existence today. And the vines, some of them are some of the oldest in the state now, because they've been there for almost 20 years, almost 40 years.
Almost 40 years, yeah.
Almost 40 years. So anyhow, that's kind of how we got started. The girls came, and they were young, and they participated in 4-H, and they grew chickens and rabbits and goats. Big emphasis on goats and horses and cattle. I planted and grew grapes. Now the girls are gone, but the grapes are still here.
Well,
So-
how many wineries are in Loudoun County itself now?
I understand that we're at about 50 if you include permits in process.
Okay.
Yeah, so we're the first, and the Extension Service prediction that it was a bad bet is the jury's probably still out, but so far so good.
So Lew started what now has turned into almost 50 wineries just in Loudoun County, and has really helped facilitate and explode the Virginia wine culture here throughout the entire state. And you learn, he's a man with a dream who learned how to do something, failed once,
Yep.
but learned from those failures, and have turned into this brilliant winery in this brilliant location with wonderful views and amazing people. Anything you want to add?
Oh, good. It's winemaking is a lifetime of learning, and it's a wonderful thing to do because it involves so many things: agriculture and chemistry and microbiology and politics, and all of them wrapped up in a bottle of wine.
So it's always been a little bit of fun.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, cheers, Lew.
Good,
Appreciate
thanks.
having us out here today, and